Hello and welcome back to 10 Years a Doctor Who Fan, the series that looks back at my time as a fan of the greatest show in the galaxy. And as a little side note, at the time of recording this particular instalment, March 2008, it is actually 10 years since I became a Doctor Who fan. I can't be sure of the date exactly, but one kind of morning afternoon in March 2008, I bought an issue of Doctor Who Adventures. There's a video all about it if you don't know already, so go and check that out if you haven't seen it. But yeah, I bought that issue and I haven't looked back since. So today's instalment will be taking a look back at 2014. And yes, I say this every single time, but this really is a big one. Loads of stuff when I was researching this year and looking back over my archive of photos and just all the stuff that went on really, merchandise, all the episodes, all the things that happened that were Doctor Who related in my life in this year. There's a lot, so apologies if this one is slightly long, but hopefully it won't be too much longer than the rest. So 2014, yeah, a massive year for me on a personal level and as a fan of Doctor Who. Basically, halfway through the year, my family decided to move house. So we moved house to a relatively new area, 2.5 hours away. I'd lived in my previous house and previous area for the whole of my life up to that point, so 14 years. And it was a massive time of change, a massive, massive time of change. But at the same time, you had that parallel of Doctor Who going through a similar change. You had Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor, would bid farewell to Matt Smith's 11th Doctor the previous year. And so the show itself was going through this period of a kind of transition, if you like, of regeneration. And so that helped, I think. But in short, yes, Doctor Who was there throughout 2014, as it has been throughout my life, and especially at that time of change. It was one of the main constants in my life, and that's one reason why I'm so grateful for the show, and why, you know, it's one of the great things it's done for me, basically. But before we get to all that, let's take a look back at what was happening at the start of the year. The Capaldi era was beckoning. Filming was beginning, I think, on about the 5th, 6th, 7th of January. We got that photo, the famous one of Peter and Jenna, and that was from the first day of filming on Series 8. So right from the start of the year, you know, even though the Capaldi era wasn't actually on until the autumn, you could very much sense in the air that it was coming, it was beckoning, and it was an exciting time, you know, having all the filming photos and news coming in like a drip feed over those first few months, over spring and summer. Personally, what was I getting up to? Well, in previous instalments I have mentioned that I had a Doctor Who museum in my bedroom, and 2014 was no exception. It was a kind of anniversary type year, I think. It wasn't actually the 5-year anniversary of me doing it, but it was the 5th time I'd done it. So it was the 4th anniversary, but if you count the first year, that was 5 individual years, if that makes sense. But nevertheless, I thought it was time to step things up, to do something special. And so, given the thing at the time about it being 100 years since the start of World War I decided to go with a war theme. So looking at wars in Doctor Who, making little displays with figures, so stuff inspired by Churchill and Victory of the Daleks, getting a little display there, AFT download set, getting the Time Lord war room. I'm trying to remember what else I had. Something to do with present day Earth invasions. I think there was a World War one as well, and Cold War. That's it. 5 different displays, and that was the backbone of this particular year's displays, really. And yeah, I treated it quite seriously. I had a special preview night event for which I charged tickets, and I actually made quite a bit of money from that, which I then used to buy the War Doctor figure and the War Doctor sonic screwdriver, you know, going along with the war theme to add to my collection. So that was all very great. And also for that preview night, I made figure adventures based along those 5 different wars that I've mentioned: World War One, World War Two, the Cold War, Earth invasions, present day, and the Time War, basically, which I'll show little clips of now. There were photos, not stop motion, no audio apart from the music, just bits of text along the bottom, But hey, we all have to start somewhere, and that's where I was at when I was 14, or no, 13 actually, but in 2014. So yeah, another interesting glimpse into some of my early figure adventures there. 2014 was also the year that I really started to get into Doctor Who magazine. Now, apologies to Doctor Who magazine, I suppose, and to myself and to whoever else for forgetting to put that in to the last video. I should have said in 2013 that around the 50th anniversary year, there was that fantastic, massive £10 pack for the November issue of Doctor Who magazine. You got the magazine, you got a little mini magazine, art cards, a whole host of other stuff I can't remember off the top of my head. But that was a really well worth the money issue of Doctor Who magazine, and it was my first one, basically. I saw that online, and I just thought, yeah, I'm having that, I'm not going without that. If there was an issue to start with, there's no issue better than this one to start collecting Doctor Who magazine. I had sort of considered it in the past. I'd picked up the odd issue, but I'd found it slightly curious, I think, as a child, because it was slightly more adult-orientated at times, in terms of the humour and the content, maybe, and the standard of critique and etc, etc. But no, 2014, well, 13, 14, was a good time for me to get into it, and I really enjoyed it. Still do enjoy it. It's a fantastic magazine. But it was just thrilling to get those very first few issues in 2013 and into 2014. A great time. Another thing that I was up to in 2014 was the New Who Challenge, spelt cringingly with a N-U as opposed to N-E-W. I cringe at that now, it's awful. But in short, this was my mission across the whole year, from January to December, to rewatch all of the new revived era of Doctor Who. So I made a nice little spreadsheet, giving myself 2 episodes a week, I think that worked out, and just cracked on with it, yeah. But the more significant aspect of this was that, alongside the episodes themselves, I watched the spin-offs. Now, I'd already seen the Sarah Jane Adventures, but I'd not seen Torchwood. So, basically, I watched Torchwood. Well, actually, I say I hadn't watched Torchwood, but I did see Children of Earth in 2009. I did see Miracle Day in 2011. But my memories of them were a bit hazy. And I'd seen nothing of Series 1 and 2. So I watched them, and that was quite an experience for a 13-year-old child, let's just say. Yeah. Crikey, there's some weird stuff in those first 2 seasons. They're very rough around the edges, I think. But at the time, I really enjoyed them. And actually, I think it was sort of the right time for me to watch them and to get into them. It gave me a nice sense of ownership, and yeah, I really enjoyed watching them. And also, I'm doing this in the wrong order here, so excuse me, but by the time I was watching the series of Torchwood, I'd actually been to Cardiff for the first time in April, which I'll go on to talk about in a moment. So that was really nice to have that link there. I'd been to Cardiff, and it felt really real because of that. Seeing the locations of Cardiff used so much, and all those panorama shots and the big droney ones, helicopter, whatever it is, the wide ones over Cardiff, bird's eye view. Seeing all that just made it feel really real and gave me a real sense of ownership, I think. And it was something that I could watch and understand and make sense of. So yeah, even though Torchwood Series 1 and 2 is a little bit strange, I really enjoyed watching them alongside all of revived Doctor Who and the Sarah Jane Adventures, animated spin-offs like Dreamland and Infinite Quest as well. All that stuff I managed to do over 2014. So yeah, that was another thing. Cardiff, let's talk about Cardiff. Let's just backtrack a little bit to April. So basically, in April, I went to Cardiff for the very first time in my life. Basically, just to go and see the Doctor experience, really. I'd seen it previously in London. You might remember that from a previous instalment, 2012. And I thought, it's about time I went again. And also, there was the advantage in Cardiff of visiting other Doctor Who locations as well. So I planned the trip, I made a list of all the locations I wanted to go to with photos for reference, because I was going with my family, a family of 5, and I wanted them to understand as well, and not just be sitting around getting bored or whatever. I needed them to understand the significance of going to a street, where the TARDIS was parked or whatever, or a wood where it was actually a spaceship, from Flesh and Stone, Puzzlewood there. So I prepared all that stuff, and also in these packs that I made for my family members, a little folder with all this information in, just on the off chance, I got some white card, and I put it in the printer and printed off a table of about 4 spaces with the heading autographs. And I just did this because I knew Doctor Who was filming the Capaldi era Series 8, and there was the off chance that, 1 in 100 chance that I might just bump into them, and they might actually be filming when I was there. But oh my god, little did I know that I would actually end up meeting Peter Capaldi, Jenna Coleman, Mark Gatiss. Wow, it was a really phenomenal experience for a 13-year-old. Yeah, I went to the set of Robot of Sherwood, basically, and wow, it was, looking back, it was such an influential moment, such an important moment in my life, because it was just so inspiring, to meet your heroes. And even though Peter Capaldi hadn't been on screen for more than 30 seconds at the time, I'd seen him in filming photos and things. I'd seen Mark Gatiss, watched his work, and Jenna, of course. It was a real jaw-dropping moment that day, and definitely one that I will never ever forget. Basically, if you don't know, I won't go into too much detail here now, because there is a separate video about it that I made a few years ago if you want to check that out. But we were there from the Monday to the Wednesday or Thursday in Cardiff, and we'd gone down on the Monday, been to Puzzlewood on the way down in Gloucestershire, because it made sense geographically to go there first, and we checked into our hotel on that Monday night, and I was just looking on Twitter, and I found some information about them filming this Robin Hood episode and possibly being in Forest 4 the next day. So I made a plan with my family, go to bed, get some sleep, and tomorrow we'll go for breakfast at the hotel, and then look, we're just going to drive to this place and see if they're there. And they were there. It was just, it was a totally surreal experience. Still looking back now, I can't quite believe it. Yeah, and I remember it like it was yesterday, following those LSW signs and going to the location, talking to the location chaps who were lovely, and even though I didn't get to see filming directly, I had to stand off to the side because they were filming down a kind of hole, cave, Three Bears cave in Forest 4, so you couldn't see what was being filmed, but even then, to hear it, to see the cast walking past, it was just amazing. Really, a really fantastic experience. And I'm just going to go into a little side note here about the whole DWSR debacle. Lots of people say reporting set photos from Doctor Who is bad. It shouldn't happen. It's evil. It's a force for evil. Just don't go anywhere near the cast. Don't interfere. Blah blah blah. And yes, I do respect that, I do understand that, but at the same time, there is a flip side to that coin. These experiences, for young fans like me, 13 years old, impressionable, and without that experience, I don't think I would be the person I am today, really. It did influence me. It inspired me to start putting stuff up on YouTube, and I suppose really, without wanting to romanticise it, it was around that point that I decided, yes, I'm going to work in television, I'm going to do this, and I've met the people that do it, so I know it's achievable, I know, that I can do it. They're human beings too, I've shaken their hands, I've had photos with them, so yeah, all in all, just a fantastic experience, one that I could talk about for hours, but I won't here, you'll be pleased to know. So I mentioned how that experience inspired me to start YouTube, and yes, basically that's what happened next. 2014 was the year that this channel was founded. And I started it basically, I'd been planning a series of figure adventures with the 3.75-inch figures. Yes, unfortunately, still not stop motion, but these ones did have the advantage of having voices instead of text for the dialogue along the bottom of the screen. They did have voices, albeit very, very high-pitched ones, because I was 13 at the time, and I was recording not only the 11th Doctor, but Clara Oswald as well, so that was interesting. But yeah, I made this series of figure adventures called the Anniversary Season, still available to check out on this very channel if you wish to. And I was just going to make these anyway, but before I'd even thought of putting them on YouTube. But then I thought, after this experience in Cardiff, I thought, yeah, why not stick them on YouTube? Get yourself heard and known, Richard, and, get yourself an audience. So that's what I did, and you're all still here today. Some of you, I suppose, will have been here from the start, but the audience has developed over time, and the channel itself is still here today, I guess. So yeah, that's how that happened. Ask the Daleks, Time of the Zygons, The Ultimate Upgrade, Raggedy Man Goodnight, and The End of the Doctor. They were the 5 figure adventures in that series. Now, I'll briefly just talk about Time and the Zygons, which is a slightly more special case. That story was set in my then hometown of Southall in Nottinghamshire. And that story wasn't just made as part of the series, it was also made as a sort of special commission for a bigger purpose. Now, allow me to explain. Basically, a long story short, the fundraiser of a project at the Archbishop's Palace, which was being renovated at the time, and it was having a nice television screen installed, and it was a place of historical interest and value, and he very kindly approached me and asked me to, first of all, if I would offer something from my Doctor Who museum to display in the display cabinet they had installed there, just as a temporary thing, really. But also, from that, I then decided to make a figure adventure set in the Archbishop's Palace, and, it was agreed that could be shown on the television screen installed in the fireplace. So that, again, quite a surreal experience. It was fairly low-key looking back, but still great to do, and to get a slightly larger audience than I had been used to at that time. It was up in that room, it's kind of sort of National Trust style. It's not National Trust, but a heritage lottery-funded building, historical interest, next to a beautiful minster, and tourists were going there regularly, so they would see my film just on in the background, and that's quite a nice thing, and I don't think anybody else could say that they've had a figure adventure kind of on loop in a building on a television screen for that long, but maybe they have, I don't know, maybe I'm just spouting rubbish. At this stage, I think I'm going to look back at the merchandise of 2014 before then going on to explain how I moved house and what I made of the Capaldi era at the time. So briefly going over the merchandise, I've touched on the fact that there was the War Doctor figure and Sonic Screwdriver in this year, following the Day of the Doctor. A great figure, loved him, and the Sonic was good as well. Although for 20 quid, 20 quid for that, it's not exactly worth it, I don't think. Given that the figure himself was £15, to pay an extra £5 for a very light-weight, cheap-feeling Sonic Screw... Well, I say cheap-feeling. It's alright, but it was basically just the classic era one with a new head stuck on, so it was a little bit of a con there, maybe. As well as this, there was more 3.75-inch stuff. The second wave of figures, you had the 12th Doctor regenerated, Clara in her red dress, a couple of Daleks, Weeping Angel, stuff like that, I think. Zygons, of course. Zygons, who can forget them. A third wave as well, with Amy and the 10th Doctor, and 2 new time zone sets that had been delayed from the previous year. The Dalek patrol ship, as well as that. The Day of the Doctor 3.75-inch set. And later on, we got the 12th Doctor figure in that scale as well. There was a special promotion with him at Hamleys. I think he was sold first in Hamleys in September 2014. And I managed to get my poor old dad to ring up Hamleys in Manchester and get them to deliver us one of these special posters they had to tie into it. Still got it in my room now. It's a red poster with all the 3.75-inch releases to that date listed on it. In terms of the 5-inch stuff, there wasn't a great deal, was there? But we did have the War Doctor. We had the B&M sets. This was the first year, I believe, that we had those sets. There was a Series 5 set, a Series 6 set, and a Series 4 set, the latter of which I picked up. $12.99 was worth it alone for Riversong. That Silence in the Library variant that I'd been after for ages. It was so rare back then. I don't think it is quite as rare now. But yeah, I was really pleased to get my hands on that figure. Even though I already had Rassilon and Donna, just to get Riversong was enough for that price tag. We also got a 5-inch Asylum of the Daleks set with a metallic drone Dalek, beautiful, love it, and a white Supreme, and a bronze Dalek with a sound chip inside him so he can speak if he presses a little globe on the side. The thing with this set, though, was that they were all Asylum Daleks, so they all had Asylum prints on, stamps, they were all weathered, dirtied down. For the drone and Supreme Daleks, this wasn't great, because that wasn't really how they'd appear in the episode. You would have thought they might have just released the standard, clean, metallic drone, especially, because it's a nice figure, nice colour, looks tons better than the original red drone Dalek. But alas, to sell it as an Asylum set, I think Character felt they had to stick on all the Asylum stamps onto every single figure in the set. So that happened, yeah. Character building as well was dying a death by this point. You had the display bricks stuff, Series 4, which was, to be fair, was a really nice range actually. You had the 12th Doctor, Madame Vastra, the War Doctor, Zygons, people like that. And I enjoyed collecting them, even though the Madame Vastra and War Doctor were so rare, ridiculously rare. I paid £10 each for them, I think, on eBay later on, just to complete the set. But character building, yeah, that was the last thing we got in the range, unfortunately. Which is sad, because it was a great range. I really enjoyed them. But later on, I suppose, we got the Lego stuff, which sort of made up for it. But that's for another video, I guess, isn't it? So, yes, that's about all in terms of merchandise for this year. So let's turn our attention to August 2014, which was the time at which I was preparing to move house, packing up my Doctor Who collection. And yeah, it was a strange time, because as I say, I'd lived in this house, in this area, for the whole of my life up to this point. And I was having to face packing up all my collection and moving it, all my Doctor Who stuff. And not only that, but having to share my new room with my brother of 2 years younger than me. So, yeah, that was interesting, as I'll probably go on to say in future videos. That was a very interesting experience. Still is. But I managed to make do. But yeah, it was strange. The week that we actually moved house spookily coincided with the week that Series 8 started. We'd packed on Thursday the 21st of August, and we were planning to actually move, to drive up on the Friday the 22nd, because that's when the removal van was going. But, instead, I said to my family on the night of the Thursday, let's just go now. Let's just do it, Why wait? The house is empty. Not quite all the stuff had gone, but most of it was boxed up and going to be moved the next day. And yeah, I thought, it's time for a fresh start. If we're going to have this fresh start, we might as well just go for it and not hold back, not wait here any longer. Let's just go. So that's what we did. We drove up to Yorkshire, and basically, yeah, that was about it. And then this also had the advantage of me having a whole day, the Friday, to set up a TV satellite, because, as some of you might know, Saturday the 23rd was actually the date that Deep Breath was broadcast. So I needed to set up a way of watching Deep Breath live, of course. And ultimately I ended up doing it, I think, just via the Wi-Fi on iPlayer on our Mac, so not on the television screen. But nevertheless, yes, we managed to get it working in time, and I was able to watch Deep Breath. But this is the strange thing, you see. It was a day after we'd moved Deep Breath, so I think all that stuff with Clara, and throughout Series 8 as well, all that stuff about her being unsure, about the new Doctor, I was feeling similar stuff about my new situation, my new predicament. And I think that's one of the reasons that Series 8 in particular really rings true with me, and I hold it so fondly and remember it so fondly, because it helped me through a time that was not easy. Everything worked out okay, but it was coping essentially with a new way of life, and that's what Clara was doing as well. So in a way, it was okay. That there was a sort of comfort in that, I think. So let's talk about Series 8. Yeah, a brilliant series. Still love it now. Really loved it at the time. Every episode, really. I mean, In the Forest of the Night is not so great, but most of them are all kind of above average, in my opinion. I just love it. I love Peter Capaldi as the Doctor. Love Jenna Coleman as Clara. Missy, absolutely loved that. Having her pop up at the end of each episode. I did correctly guess that she was the Master. Yes, just putting it out there. I thought, yeah, Missy, Mistress, got it. She's the Master. But still, that reveal is genius. I absolutely loved it. I think it's such a clever reveal. Even though we had guessed, it was still just thrilling. A really thrilling moment when she says, "I am the Master." There's nothing that compares to that. Even if you know that a character is the Master or an actor is the Master, actually hearing them say, "I am the Master," or I couldn't very well keep calling myself the Master, is still a spine-chilling moment. And yeah, I love that finale. Such a great finale. And then Last Christmas as well, another great story. So it was a great year for Doctor Who, really, and a great year for me as a Doctor Who fan, even though there was an element of change, lots of things going on in my personal life. It was also a really influential year. I met Peter Capaldi and the cast and crew of Doctor Who, and that in turn inspired me to start doing more stuff and putting it on YouTube. And that started off the journey that I'm still on today with this channel, the very channel that you're watching a video on now. So it was a fundamental year, I think, overall, to sum up, if you like, to conclude 2014. Perhaps, actually, the most fundamental year in my life so far, or definitely in my time as a Doctor Who fan. Definitely one of the most important ones, really. So, yes, that does it for this instalment of 10 Years Doctor Who Fan. What are your memories of Doctor Who in 2014? What were you getting up to? What did you think of Series 8? Let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to read them and maybe reply as well. Otherwise, I'm now on Easter holiday, which means two things at my age. Rest, but also revision. So, yeah, but nevertheless, I still intend to get lots of videos in. I'm not stopping now, yet. I might have to eventually, around May or June time, just for a few weeks, for a month or two, because I am doing A-levels, if you didn't know, I'm at that age. But, I don't intend to stop this anytime soon, and definitely, whilst I can keep it going in the background, I will. So rest assured, there will be new videos out, definitely over the next month or so, and hopefully after that as well, and definitely into the summer holidays and beyond, really. So I'll see you very soon for some more new content, but for now, goodbye.